Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai excelled at its gameplay, but I found its story mode to be lacking. Many individuals may think that a story mode in a fighting game isn't all that important, but I'm one of those people that plays Dragon Ball Z games for the story and the fan service.
Nice.
Shin Budokai 2 shares many mechanics and features with its predecessor and feels more like an expansion than a sequel. So because of this, I'm going to be skipping over the stuff that I already talked about in the Shin Budokai 1 video. So go watch the video on the first game if you care enough to do so. But if you don't care, then let's move on, shall we? If you find value in the many hours of this channel's content, then become a channel member today, or consider giving a small tip through the Super Thanks feature. Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai 2, also known as Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai Another Road, is a fighting game that was released for the PlayStation Portable in 2007. It is the sequel to the 2006 game Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai. What an amazing fact. And is the second Dragon Ball Z game to be released for the PSP. Another Road is the name of the story mode, which is a fucking weird coincidence. The plot of this game is a brand new story, rather than a retelling of any of the sagas or movies. Kind of. Allegedly. This helps to distinguish this game from the other Budokai titles, because even Shin Budokai 1 followed the Fusion Reborn movie, though it did deviate slightly, with a lot of meandering. An alternate timeline saw Goku suffer and die from a heart condition, and Earth's mightiest defenders eventually succumb to the androids. Despair rules the bleak world. The last surviving warrior of this world, known only as Trunks, travelled back in time to meet Goku. Over the course of successive fights with the androids in Cell, he grew stronger, and now harmony in the past and future has been re-established. After some time has passed and the major cities have been rebuilt, the World Martial Arts Tournament is held once again. Trunks has decided to participate in the tournament, and while there he meets both Kibito and Shin, aka the Supreme Kai. I know, it's a twist. Kibito requests that Trunks transform into a Super Saiyan, which he does, attracting the wizard Babidi and his henchman Deborah to the tournament grounds.
Aha! There you are.
What's this? He seems to have an impressive energy.
Deborah begins stealing energy from the tournament fighters in order to resurrect Majin Buu. Is this beginning to sound familiar? Recognizing this, Trunks tries to stop him, but is unable to move due to the Supreme Kai's powers, who does not want Trunks to fight them just yet. They try to flee, but Deborah starts destroying cities to lure them out. When Trunks notices this, he breaks free, only to have Deborah drain his energy. Babidi and Deborah are awestruck by his immense power and wonder if there are others like him. Babidi examines Trunks' memories and discovers the Z Fighters from the main timeline. Okay, so to avoid confusion, I'm going to be referring to the timeline from like the anime and manga as the main timeline, and the future timeline is the future timeline.
Hello. Yuck, what the fuck?
After the prologue, we are teleported back in time 10 years to 1997 with these janky looking models. Yes, this is a handheld game, but the transition from the beautiful graphics of the fights to this is so jarring. So in the story mode, you'll be taken to a section of the world map where you can fly around, similar to the Dragon Universe mode in Budokai 3, but completely different. You'll be given a clear condition that is usually to defeat an enemy and sometimes within a time limit, which you need to achieve in order to clear the stage. You're also given an optional mission that, if completed, will reward you with a Z ranking for the stage. The higher your rank, the more Zenny you will earn. You will spawn on a small portion of the world map, most likely because loading the entire thing would be too taxing on the PSP. You can change the camera view from close to not as close to even more not as close. Your default fly speed is extremely slow, making the controls feel sluggish. You can accelerate by holding down the X button, which feels better, not like but more like also it lasts for bugger all time. It just makes flying around the map not all that fun. To engage in combat, simply fly into the enemy, who will also be flying around the map. But fighting the enemies isn't the only thing you'll have to worry about, because they'll be trying to destroy cities as they fly around. The health percentage of a city is displayed in the upper left corner of the screen. If an enemy begins to destroy cities, its percentage will decrease. You must defeat the enemy and position yourself close to the city in order to restore it. Not only will the city's percentage return, but you will also regain any lost health. The system is honestly just kind of annoying, but I'm gonna go over it in more detail later on because the annoyingness just gets more annoying as the game progresses. It's such a terrible sentence. Our first objective is to defeat Deborah within the time limit, so all we have to do now is to fly into him. And my first thought when entering this fight was, what the fuck? So the camera angle in this game is similar to that seen in the Tenkaichi series. However, you can move freely within the 3D space in those games, and your movement was orientated around your opponent. However, in Shin Budokai 2, your movement is restricted and the controls do not accommodate this camera angle. So when you press up on the directional buttons, what you'd think would move your character towards your opponent, it doesn't. Instead, you are supposed to press right. It just doesn't feel right. Furthermore, it is difficult to read your opponent's movements clearly. Fortunately, you can return the camera to the slide-on view, as it should be. Now, I have no problem with the game allowing you to change the camera angle if that's how you want to play the game, because you're some kind of psychopath. My problem is that this is the camera's default setting. Why would you make this camera the default when the controls of the game are clearly not designed for it? If this was someone's first Budokai game, you might think that this is how it's supposed to be. The cool fighting mechanics are pretty much copy-pasted from Shin Budokai 1. Not that that's a bad thing, as they are excellent. Although there are a few added features that make this gameplay a little differently. We now have a guard bar, so instead of infinite blocking, you only have a few hits before you have to use another form of defense, such as the aura guard. The aura guard uses ki, but is much more difficult to break, and can even block ultimate attacks. Unfortunately, the AI has a habit of spamming this move, which can be quite irritating. Throws, fully charged slam attacks, and aura slams can all break through aura guard. A character's aura burst charge is activated by pressing both shoulder buttons at the same time, which has varying effects depending on the character. Some characters receive massive stat boosts, allowing them to deal more damage, while others regenerate health and have their ki cost significantly reduced. In the pause menu, you can check a character's power up at the bottom of the command list. When a character transforms, their aura burst charge can change, just like their special and ultimate attacks. However, the weaker aura burst charge is more common in stronger transformations. Aura burst charge is a useful ability that can temporarily increase a character's power, allowing them to turn the tide of battle in their favour. However, it should be used wisely, as it can only be used once per fight, unless you are Goku, because he is the main character. Well, I guess technically Trunks is the main character in this game, so I have no idea. Unfortunately, Shin Budokai 2 does a bad job at explaining these new mechanics, and by bad I mean it doesn't explain them at all. There is still no tutorial, which I thought was fine for the first game because it was simpler. Additionally, fighting games tend to rely on players learning through trial and error, as there are many different characters and abilities to experiment with and master. This means that a tutorial mode may not be required to teach players how to play the game effectively. However, these new features aren't very intuitive to figure out, and I hardly even used them when I started because I didn't know what they were and I didn't know how to use them. Deborah flees the battle and fires a massive energy blast into a densely populated city. Trunks is able to withstand the blast and protect the city. He lost consciousness as a result of the damage he'd already sustained. Babidi and Deborah escape, but Trunks overhears their plan to travel to the main timeline and absorb the Z Fighter's energy in order to resurrect Boo. That brings the first chapter to a close. Or does it? If we return to chapter 1 and fail to defeat Deborah within the time limit, an alternate path will be revealed. Trunks is severely injured and nearly killed by a powerful ki blast from Deborah. Kibito sacrifices himself to deflect the attack. Trunks had to seek medical attention because Kibito was their only source of healing. Babidi and Deborah were able to gather enough energy to resurrect Boo because they had no one to oppose them. You'll now be fighting Trunks as Majin Buu. This fight is heavily skewed in your favour due to your superior health. With the death of Trunks, the fate of the world was sealed. Boo destroyed the world, then the universe, before turning his attention to the Kais. Those who could have stopped Boo were long gone. The world will soon return to nothingness. That was bloody bleak. Well, on to chapter 2. After being wounded by Deborah while protecting a city from one of his ki blasts, Trunks realizes that he cannot do it alone. He decides to travel back in time once more to seek assistance from the main timeline's Z fighters. Deborah is attacking West City, and Trunks must defend it if the time machine is to be saved. There are two possible outcomes in this section. Trunks either goes to Corrin's tower on his way to West City, or directly to the city. He'll get sensu beans either way. These act as lives. When you lose a fight, you will consume a sensu bean, and using all of them means the game is over. The enemies may also have sensu beans, and you will have to fight them multiple times before they leave the field. When you refight an enemy, they will start with less and less health, so the fights will get quicker. However, it can become quite repetitive, especially if you go out of your way to defeat everyone on the field. Yeah, so Android 18, Cell and Frieza are here now, but they are not the real ones, rather puppets created by Babidi. You can just avoid fighting them if you can't be bothered. Sometimes they will chase you though. For this stage, you must defeat Deborah once more, but this time before West City is destroyed. If successful, the time machine and Trunks' mother Bulma will be saved. Trunks will travel back in time to recruit the help of the Z fighters. If you fail to protect the city in time, the game will take a different turn. Trunks decides to bring future Gohan and Pikkon back to life for one day on Earth to aid in the fight, like what Goku was able to do during the Buu saga. And it is at this point where you will realize how difficult this game can be. It will set strict time limits for you to defeat the enemies, who now have significantly more health, and the time limits aren't just for fights. The timer is also counting down while flying around the map, so you don't have much time to rest between fights. It's an absolute clusterfuck, and I would be extremely impressed by anyone who would be able to do this mission on their first playthrough. If you do manage to win a fight, the enemy will probably call for allies, making it even more of a clusterfuck. Gohan and Pikkon will now join you on the field and fight alongside you. At the bottom of the screen is a battle meter. It will display the progress of an ally's fight, whether they are winning or losing, which at this point in the game they are almost certainly going to lose. You can interrupt their fight to try and help them, or you can heal them with one of your sensu beans, but this means less for you. If you fail this mission, which let's be honest, you probably will, Trunks must fight alone after Gohan and Pikkon's single down Earth expires. By himself he cannot stand up to the enemy and is destroyed. With Trunks gone, there is no one left to oppose Babidi's ambitions and the world is doomed.
Shit.
So we've established that this game can be extremely difficult. However, this is a game that will entice you to return for multiple playthroughs. In Shin Budokai 1 there was no way to customize your character. In Shin Budokai 2 there is the booster system. After a fight you will be able to select a booster card. Because they are turned down, the outcome is somewhat random. You don't have access to very powerful boosters at the start of the game, but as you progress through it, you will be rewarded with much more powerful ones. You can customize the booster grid with each character. The grid has a maximum of 9 slots. Not all of the slots will be unlocked from the beginning, and you can purchase these slots with Zenny along with other boosters. Boosters are classified into 3 types. The normal boosters improve various stats such as health, ki, strength, and a few others. Power-up boosters augment the effects of the other boosters. They have arrows on them, so you need to pay attention how you arrange them on your grid. Last but not least, there are the extremely rare ultimate boosters. These increase the power of your ultimate move, but because they are so powerful, you can only set one of these at a time. Boosters can make a significant difference in the outcome of a battle, and I'm pretty sure the difficulty of the story mode takes these into account. Because the AI isn't necessarily difficult in terms of skill, it's just that their stats are so much higher than yours at the start, and there simply isn't enough time to defeat them without boosted stats. Overall, boosters can be a useful tool for those looking to give their characters an advantage in battle. However, keep in mind that these boosters are not a replacement for skill and strategy, and you must still use your wits and fighting abilities to win battles. Boosters are a great reward for fighting and make achieving higher ranks more meaningful because there's something worth spending your Zenny on this time around. When you do eventually clear this mission, Buu's resurrection is prevented and that's the end. Not worth it. But what I really like about these branching paths is that the story is changed by the player's actions, and they have a significant impact on the story. Unlike the first game where you simply chose a dialogue option, and it had little impact on the plot. Trunks used his time machine to travel back in time. He explains the situation in the future to Goku and the other Z fighters. Then they all travel to the future. This entire scenario happens within a few text boxes. When telling its story, this game, like the first Shin Budokai, employs a visual novel style. The character portraits look much better this time around because the game uses 2D images rather than renders of the 3D models. However, the problem of the characters only having one expression remains. The map section now have character interactions as well. They are typically used to keep you up to date on what the other characters are up to, as well as to provide brief explanations from King Kai. However, these minor interactions can become quite irritating, especially if your allies keep taking out the puppets.
Man, I was holding back.
You'll be constantly interrupted while attempting to complete the objective, and it gets worse and worse as the game progresses, due to the increasing number of enemies on the field. While it is nice that they added in a little bit more character interactions in the story presentation, overall they are fucking annoying. The graphics in Shin Budokai 2 are nearly identical to those in the first game. The character models are detailed and closely resemble their Dragon Ball Z anime and manga counterparts. The game has smooth animations, fluid movements, and a wide range of special effects for various attacks and abilities. The game's environments are also well designed, with a variety of different stages to fight on, each with their own distinct look and feel. Overall, the graphics in Shin Budokai 2 are solid and do an excellent job of bringing the Dragon Ball Z universe to life on the PSP. While not as detailed or polished as those found in more recent games, they are still impressive given the PSP's hardware limitations. The music is mostly reused from the Budokai games, which has become a recurring theme of these videos, although there are some other tracks, but you'll be going through menus and be like, that's that song again. It's that song again. The song, the same song, it's that one again. The music is excellent, but is becoming very overused at this point. There are two paths you can take in this chapter, but they both lead to the same conclusion, so it doesn't really matter which one you take. The plot differs only slightly, with the bottom path involving you defeating puppet clones things, and the top path involving Piccolo being taken over by Babidi. What's amusing about this is that Vegeta has the audacity to chastise Piccolo for it. Talk about the pot calling the Talk about the pot calling the kettle Mr. Kettle. Talk about calling the pot calling the kettle poop. And then he transforms back into Majin Vegeta, because of course he does. With all the fighting, Babidi manages to gather enough energy to resurrect Boo. So Trunks brought the Z fighters to the future to stop Boo's resurrection. But the only reason Boo could be resurrected was because the Z fighters came to the future.
Shit.
What I don't understand is if Babidi has enough power to create copies of the Z fighters, then why couldn't he just take the energy from them? Or better yet, just use his own... fuck it. You must fight and defeat Vegeta while controlling Boo. Following the fight, Babidi orders Boo to kill Vegeta, but he refuses. Babidi then learns from Piccolo's memories that he was murdered by Boo in the main timeline. He also recalls Dragon Balls on planet Namek from Piccolo's memories, so he travels to planet Namek in search of the Namekian Dragon Balls. I shit you not, this is actually what happens. Within like 2 dialogue boxes where he's gone. Okay. I hate the mind-reading plot device. It's just so poorly executed and it feels like an ass pull most of the time. Plus, if you take the bottom path, Babidi never takes over Piccolo, so how would he fuck it. Trunks and the others travel to New Namek in order to find the Namekian Dragon Balls before Babidi and Cooler, who is also here, looking for the Dragon Balls, because he is evil?
Are we the baddies?
Honestly, at this point the game is just adding enemies and the story doesn't do a good job of justifying their appearance, but it does add variety. But actually it doesn't at all, because you have to fight Metal Cooler over and over again. I'd like to apologise to Budokai 2 for complaining about how repetitive it was, because in comparison, it wasn't. I didn't know, okay? I didn't know. During these next few stages, you have to fly around to locate the Dragon Balls. Fortunately, you have the Dragon Radar to assist you. They appear as orange balls on the map, and you simply need to fly over them to collect them. If the enemy finds one, you must fight them and defeat them in order to take it away from them. This also works in reverse, as if you lose a fight while in possession of a Dragon Ball, your opponent will take it. Trunks and the others fight the Meta Coolers, but one manages to flee and report to the normal cooler? Is that what he's called? The one that's not made of metal, revealing that Goku was the one who defeated his brother Frieza and is on New Namek. Cooler decides to accompany the Meta Coolers to fight Goku. Before beginning a mission, you can select 3 characters to use. The first character is the one you will be in control of. Your CPU allies will be the other 2. From this screen you can also customize the characters with boosters and stuff, but there is also another option that I didn't figure out until reaching this chapter. That is, you must choose the transformation in the character select screen. I couldn't figure out why the characters wouldn't transform, despite having unlocked the transformations, so make certain that you select it here. The transformations still work the same way they did in the first game, so they are extremely unbalanced. It makes no sense that you only need 4 full ki gauges to turn Super Saiyan 3, whose base ki is 6 gauges. This 4 gauge requirement is largely meaningless in the story mode, as you begin the fight already transformed. In terms of balance, this system is just bad, but in terms of making the characters who should be more powerful, they are more powerful. What? Who wrote this nonsense? Broly also turns up on planet Namek and is as angry as ever. It turns out that both him and Cooler are working with Babidi, because of course they are. Despite this, the Z Fighters manage to collect the 7 Dragon Balls, and Dende summons Porunga and makes 3 wishes. The first is to resurrect those who died on New Namek. The second is to destroy the Big Gedi Star, and the third is to restore the destroyed villages. Babidi tries to attack Dende before the third wish is granted. Dende cries out for help, which Porunga interprets as a wish. A mysterious figure appears and stops Babidi. I wonder who it could be! The Z Fighters bring Dende to Earth to become the new Guardian and have the Dragon Balls on Earth again, and remove all tension from the plot. Not that there was much to begin with, but life and death are meaningless. There are a few different branches in this chapter, but they are all just different fail states. If you fail to collect the Dragon Balls before the villains, all of the alternative endings pretty much boil down to everyone dies and the universe is doomed.
Shit.
While the Z Fighters were on New Namek, Mr. Satan managed to befriend Boo by giving him a pebble. This may appear trivial, but it's crucial for later on. Deborah attacks Mr. Satan, which enrages Boo and causes him to split in 2, making an evil Boo. They fight, with evil Boo eventually devouring good Boo. Yum. Fighting as Super Boo, we must eliminate Deborah. I'm not sure who we should root for, but it's probably Deborah. He has a beard. That's why we should root for him. Super Boo then transforms Deborah into chocolate and consumes him. Yum. The Z Fighters return to Earth. Dende restores the Dragon Balls and Tien and Yamcha go to collect them. At the same time, Babidi returns to Earth and discovers that Deborah has been defeated by Super Boo. He then notices a Dragon Ball in Boo's hand, which was the pebble given to him by Mr. Satan. Well done, story. You done something good. Recognizing that the Dragon Balls have been revived, he sends Super Boo to play with the Z Fighters, while he, the brainwashed Cooler, and Broly go after the Dragon Balls. Playing through this chapter, I can't help but notice that this game's completely unique story is just a retelling of the Boo saga, but with extra steps. In this chapter, for example, Gohan returns to the sacred world of the Kai to use the Z Sword, but is unable to do so. Instead, they must locate Gohan from the future timeline. In this timeline, future Gohan has already died, and they must travel to the other world. This is where all of the extra steps occur, such as when they end up fighting Janemba, and then Bardock joins us to fight Boo, and it's like, what? The plot gets very derailed, mostly to add in more content to play through. Basically, this is just a long-winded way for me to say that the storytelling is not very good. They simultaneously stick too close to the source material, making it feel kind of like a truncated rehash of the Boo saga, while veering way left field with adding in all of these other villains and characters to the point where it becomes unnecessarily convoluted. It doesn't help that the writing once again reads like bad fan fiction. Most of the dialogue is an absolute slog to read through. The writing style is uninteresting, most of the characters feel out of character, if they are written with any character at all. I like the concept of what they're going for, but once again I hate the execution. The best part about the story is they make Gohan powerful again, which is awesome as his character got a bit shafted during the end of Z. and Posey. Why does the writer hate Gohan? Another thing I want to complain about is that future Gohan still has both his arms. I guess you get your missing limbs back when you die. After finding future Gohan, the group returns to the sacred world of the Kai. Future Gohan easily pulls the Z sword out and Gohan shatters it to reveal old Kai. Future Gohan has this potential unlocked and brought back to life by old Kai. Paikon and Bardock are then given one day to help. The old Kai also gives them Patora earrings for fusion. Goku is astounded by how many fighters they have amassed, including his father, which I still find odd, but I'm guessing it's just for fan service, which I think is okay. They have managed to collect all the Dragon Balls besides the one that Babidi is in possession of. Babidi appears at the lookout and demands the Dragon Balls, threatening to obliterate the cities if he doesn't get them. While Yamcha is distracted, Janemba emerges from the shadows and steals the Dragon Balls from him. There are two paths you can take, one to save the cities and the other to pursue Janemba. If you take the top path, Goku and Vegeta will perform a fusion dance, and you will be able to play as Gogeta. The Z Fighters reclaim the Dragon Balls after defeating Janemba. However, we still have to go defend the cities, so the decision at the beginning of the chapter didn't really matter much. Broly and Cooler are the ones responsible for attacking the cities. Babidi steals the Dragon Balls during the fight. Not needed anymore, Babidi betrays Broly and Cooler because he's an idiot. Cooler's rage frees him from Babidi's control and causes him to attack the sorcerer, requiring Babidi to use Super Buu to absorb both Broly and Cooler, making Buu even more powerful. The other path is similar in that you go to save the cities, but this time as Gotenks. Buu ends up absorbing Gotenks and Gohan, just as he did in the original story. So Goku and Vegeta fuse into Vegito using the Patora earrings. They deliberately become absorbed in order to free Gotenks and Gohan. I can't help but notice that these branching paths don't add much to the experience. It does add more content, but it lacks meaning. You know what it feels like? It feels like filler. It stinks because it did a great job with the alternative path in Chapter 2. It felt substantial with a ramp up of difficulty while leading to a completely different outcome to the story. But aside from that chapter, the ultimate paths just start to peter out in quality. Babidi summons Shenron, but he is cut off by Mr. Satan, who wishes to become the most popular guy in the universe in order to stop Babidi's evil. Enraged that his wish has been stolen, Babidi attacks Mr. Satan, but Super Buu takes the blow, leaving him near death. Super Buu becomes enraged and devours Babidi. Super Buu transforms into Kid Buu after gaining Babidi's power. However, he suddenly becomes feeling. What the fuck? That doesn't make any sense. This is like one of the worst written scripts I have done so far. Suddenly he begins feeling intense pain and purposely spits out Good Buu. Kid Buu becomes pure evil after the Good Buu leaves his body. Kid Buu then begins mass producing Super Buu copies, which begin destroying everything. The first time through this section of the game is a complete slog. There are a lot of Boos to fight and they all have a lot of health. This section is actually quite difficult. If you're using a character that has long reach, the AI will try to stay out of that character's range and use quick close range attacks to get in close. On the other hand, if you're using a character that has a lot of powerful attacks, the AI will use a range of defensive and evasive moves to make it harder for you to land hits, and will try to take advantage of openings in your defense. All of these factors make the AI in Shin Budokai 2 challenging, but also provide a fun and rewarding experience as you learn how to overcome the AI's tactics and improve your skills. And if everything else fails, there are always boosters, and herein lies one of the game's strengths. The ability to replay sections with any character you want, equipped with whatever boosters you want. Returning to these stages with your powered up character and kicking ass is a lot of fun. It almost feels like this is how the later stages are meant to be played. After fighting through the hordes of Super Boos, Kid Buu will finally appear. Defeating him will trigger one of two endings, one in which Goku defeats Buu with a Spirit Bomb, and the other in which Goku, Gohan, Goten, Bardock, and future Gohan use their Kamehamehas to destroy Kid Buu. Because apparently Bardock knows the Kamehameha now, even though he doesn't. And game he does not know it. I think the writers think that it's like a skill that you genetically inherit rather than a skill that you learn. No matter which ending you get, everyone returns to their timeline and everything is hunky-dory once again. Yay! Like I mentioned before, this original story is just the Boo Saga but different, and not really in a good way. The Boo Saga's storytelling was already a little sloppy, and Shin Budokai 2 only makes it worse. The story mode structure is intriguing with a mix of straight up fights and flying around the world map, and while the world map stages are fun at first and require a bit more strategy, they really start to drag near the end of the game. It gets very repetitive when you have multiple copies of the same enemies to defeat. The game is at its best on subsequent playthroughs when you have access to more powerful characters and more customization options. Aside from the story, there are a few other modes to play. Most of them are just carryovers from the first game, so I'm not going to go over them again. Challenges have been added to the Z Trials section. There are 50 challenges to complete. In order to complete the challenge, you must perform a specific action or actions against an opponent. This can range from using a move multiple times to dealing a certain amount of damage in a combo. These challenges are quite fun, and it is satisfying to check them off the list, though some did cause me some difficulty, and I had to look up how to do some of them. This is by far the mode I spent the most time in, other than the story mode of course. Well, maybe not. Shin Budokai 2 includes an arcade mode similar to the first game. However, it does play out slightly differently. In Shin Budokai 1's arcade mode, your fighter has 3 special battles. The 2 fighters would converse before the battle. In Shin Budokai 2, a small conversation will precede every single fight. Every character has a unique line of dialogue with every other character. The arcade mode's premise is that you are fighting through the World Martial Arts Tournament, but there isn't even a World Tournament stage in the game. So I call bullshit.
Oh no, that's bullshit, isn't it?
Dragon Ball Z Shin Budokai 2 is definitely an improvement over the first game. The gameplay is still fantastic and the customization only enhances it further. While the volume and variety of the content in the story mode have increased, the storytelling and storyline remain a bit of a letdown. The game promises a completely new story, but all we got was a fanfiction retelling of the Boo Saga. It becomes a really repetitive slog near the end, to be perfectly honest. The Shin Budokai series have the best gameplay of any Dragon Ball Z fighting game I've played so far, but I just can't get past the story mode's flaws. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm one of those strange people who primarily play these games for the story mode, and this game falls flat on that front. I know I keep repeating myself, but Budokai 3 is still my favourite Dragon Ball Z game. Okay, I'm done. Bye.